Welcome to the MotUS Edge, where we celebrate business, primarily youth sports facility management, leadership, and motivation. Co-hosted by Stacy Rowe, Cole Stott, Kevin Brubaker, and Casey Jones. We are here to fill your cup with knowledge, laughter, affirmations, and comfort knowing that you're not alone. You can and will succeed with the MotUS Edge.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the MotUS Edge Podcast, where we talk about leadership, motivation, and all things cheerleading and dance business. I am Stacy Rowe, here today with my favorite co-host, Casey Jones. Whoop, whoop.
Hello.
Yeah, we are going to talk a little bit about how cheerleading has evolved over the years, what we love and what we wish we could change. This might be a little bit of a hot topic. I don't know. Depends.
I know it could be a hot topic.
We'll see where the conversation goes.
Well, a lot has changed.
Yeah.
A lot has changed. So it is no longer.
I can tell you one of the things that's changed is I'm a lot older now than I used to be.
Me as well. But like my dad says, it beats the, every time I complain about getting old, he's like, it beats the alternative. So
this is true. You're absolutely right.
So I've been in the cheerleading business for close to 30 years now. Started my own gym in 98, but I was kicking around a couple of years before that. So, getting close to about 30 years. So, and a lot has changed, and a lot of things changed somewhat rapidly. The thing that I recall, the biggest change, I remember getting into the business and literally all you needed was the ability to be able to lease some space, and you would lay down a hard floor, some carpet bonded foam, maybe a couple of cheese mats, and you could go, so it was a relatively small investment to get started in cheerleading and what you needed as far as equipment. And then fast forward a little bit, and I remember we added a foam block floor. And for those of you that don't know, it's basically a spring floor, but instead of springs underneath, you put foam blocks. And you glue them on there. So literally liquid nail, and you glue all these foam blocks on there. And that's how you built your spring floors. They were typically built out of plywood or particle board, and then you screwed them together, and it took just days.
God, I had one of those. I forgot about those, actually.
Well, and then you'd pull them up 2 years later to clean out from under them, and the foam blocks that were like 6 inches tall were now smushed down to about 3 inches tall.
Yes.
So they definitely didn't last as long as the spring floors. But, that was the thing I'll give credit to Kevin for. Kevin's the guy that really, him and his team, his cheer sport team, were like, hey, let's have a competition and have spring floors. And I remember when that was first coming about, we weren't really for it because we didn't have spring floors in our gym. And we were big believers in that you have to train on what you compete on. We didn't have one. So we actually still had a large, we had some foam block floor, but we had a large portion of hard floor because at that time, NCAA Nationals was still on a hard floor.
A lot of events were still on a hard floor.
Yeah.
They weren't it was easier, and it was what the kids were used to. Like I remember going to a competition that had a spring floor, coming from a gym that only had a foam floor. And, the kids, they would be excited because they'd get to tumble on a spring floor, but it was so foreign. Could you imagine taking your kids to a competition and competing on a different surface today? Like I don't even, there's coaches out there that probably can't even fathom that, but that's what it was like. We would just show up to the competition and, oh, okay, there's a spring floor today. Like this is going to be interesting. Yeah. And we'd have kids over rotating, and we'd have kids wanting to throw skills that, they weren't in the routine because they felt like they could now because there was a spring floor. Of course, we didn't let them do any of that, but it was an interesting time. And while I love the spring floor, I don't know. Do you think it made the sport better?
I don't know. There are arguments that it is safer, and then there are arguments that it's not. Our kids in the state of Georgia, they compete Georgia high school on a hard floor, and then obviously many of them do all-stars on a spring floor. The thing that I've seen, it's hard to bounce back and forth from both. If I am training half the time on a spring floor and half the time on a hard floor, that's when, kids, because they don't rebound the same. They don't do the same thing. So, I think it's important to be consistent. I think it's important to train well. And then obviously the kids love a spring floor. I think if they have a choice, they're always going to choose the spring floor.
Sure.
At least that's what I hear from them. And I like the fact of, take all the physical aspects of what the spring floor, like it makes you tumble higher. The skills can be better. Maybe it's safer. Feel like it did legitimize the all-star business though, because now, unlike, hey, I can, for 15 grand and the ability to sign a lease, I can just pop up a gym, and anybody could own a gym.
Yeah.
Now the barrier to entry it's there, but I think it's a positive
for the owner.
thing.
It's a little bit more of a serious commitment for the owner.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a couple $100,000 worth of equipment to go open a gym now. And once again, I think that's a positive thing because it legitimizes, like, hey, I've got to run a legitimate business. I've got to really make sure that my skill set to be able to run a business is there because it's a big investment. So I think that is one of the positive aspects about spring floors that sometimes overlooked.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's a good point. I think, these are some like silly minor changes, but when back in the day, All-Star, you could do cheer and music or all music. I think that I was a definite fan of the all music. That was one of the big changes back in the day. So I like the all music. I definitely like having a time limit. So that was a good change because I feel like if there was a time limit before, it was like 3 minutes or something. I don't know. It was not, it was too long.
Yeah.
It was definitely too long, I feel like. So that was one of the good things. I think one of the things that's remained constant is the passion, for the sport and the kids and just the impact it can have, even on my life, as an adult, working with all the kids and all the different things. I think that is something that has remained, which is awesome.
That's where it falls into kind of the art of the sport, because you watch a 6-year-old that's just beginning in their cheerleading career. They are doing all kinds of cheerleading around the house. My kids did that. They were doing back walkovers off the couch and making up their own dances to whatever was on the TV and constantly doing arm motions and practicing their choreography. And you see the same thing in gymnastics and the same thing in dance. And you see those same things that in other sports, but that's what hooks these kids in, and these you see these young ladies and they're at the park, they're at the Target, they are wherever, and they're running through their cheerleading routines. And it's actually kind of cool to see that. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's a lot of fun for sure. There's a lot of, gyms now, a lot of options, I feel like, for people. It didn't used to be that way. There was a handful in each state, and now there's a lot, in each state. So I think that's the sport is definitely growing.
Well, there's a lot, and there's a lot that offer different things. A lot of people, all these gyms offer all-star cheer. Yeah, but they offer it in a different way. Some are selling an experience. Some are selling a competitive experience. Some are selling a fun experience, and then there's some that are trying to combine all three of those. But none of that's wrong. You have to find what fits your family and what fits your athlete. And I think that's awesome in today's all-star world, that we have those gyms that offer different things. Because we say it all the time at Stingrays isn't for everyone, and we don't pretend to be, because we do a specific thing, and we may not have something that someone's looking for. So
yeah,
I'll never forget, I had a good friend, actually I became friends with him. It was my landlord from one of my original buildings, and we were just starting and we were small, and I had a landlord, and he had two his younger boys work for him, and they were probably in their early 20s at that time. So once fast forward, 15 years, maybe even longer, maybe even 20 years, and those young boys had grown up and they had a family and they had a daughter, and they remembered me, and they came, and we were no longer in their facility, and they came and they searched me down, and it was great talking to those guys. And about a week later, the guy called me. He's like, man, I can't keep my daughter there. It's like, why? What's going on? He's like, y'all are just too hardcore. We thought we wanted to do cheerleading. We came in, we signed up for a team, but
it's too serious.
We got to be there 3 days a week and practice 6 hours. And like the coach was talking about her homework, and I was like, yeah, man, we're pretty highly competitive here. And I said, but the thing is, she may get there. I was like, so, go and do something fun, maybe try some rec cheerleading, and if it
come
catches,
back when she's ready to be serious.
Absolutely. So.
Yeah, totally. I think it's important to, we talk about this a lot on here. I feel like it's important to know who you are, and be that, and just be okay with that, and communicate that to everybody, because there is a place for everyone. Everybody has different wants and needs, and you can, just
and realize you can't be all things to all people, and that's okay. That's when I fail the biggest, is when I'm trying to be all things to all people. I'm a people
pleaser. In a way, I feel like the all-star industry, you could argue, has tried to become all things to all people as well. And, 349, do you know how many actual divisions we have now?
A couple too many.
Yeah. And then we have 2 score sheets now that they can choose from, and that basically doubles all of the divisions that they can be in. And it's kind of crazy. So that's definitely one of the things I don't love about the sport. I also don't love, I don't want to say I don't love it, but I enjoyed more the freedom to create routines and do a lot more with your routines. I feel like it's become so rubric and specific on what you have to do that like you've got to check all of your boxes, and it eliminated a lot of the freedom to just kind of come up with some really cool things. And a 4/8 count dance, I used to love the 8/8 count dances that would be talked about, and there was music and theming, and it was just like their dance was part of the show. We've kind of worked that out now. I feel like, it's part of the routine, it's part of the score, but it's a blip.
I miss the musicality of, because that all changed, and rightfully so. There were music laws that were being broken. So
I was actually curious though. So the Olympics have been on recently, obviously, and I've been watching a lot of figure skating, and I was actually really curious, where are they getting how are they doing it? Because they're airing music that's definitely not, it's cut pieces of music that they've put together, kind of like we used to do in cheerleading, and they're playing it on national television. How is that happening?
I think it's how much you cut it. Once again, don't pretend to know those laws. I know we've had a couple music guys on before, and they understood it a little bit better. But, it's much like, I assume it's a lot like dance teams. They can use one solid song and put some. Yes,
I feel like the figure skating music was cut. I don't want to say like cheer music, but cut like cheer music back in the day. And I immediately was like, that's not a cover song. How are they getting away with that? I want to know how that's allowed and figure it out, because that is actually one of the things I miss the most is the music.
I agree.
Especially in dance, more so than cheer, but even in cheer too, because I feel like it just, I don't know, it just made it different. And I don't even know how to explain it. It just made you feel it more. It's just so robotic now.
Yeah. Well, I miss that as well. But those were songs that we could relate to. And we used, we would use 80s music and different things like that. And the judges would be sitting up on the stands.
Were you just about to call 80s music oldies music?
Well,
because I guess it kind of is oldies now, but.
But you would have the coaches, and I think the thing is I agree with you. I miss that music, but you had the coaches, the judges, and probably the parents that really related to that style of music. Whereas in today's music, the kids relate to the current style of cheer music. And you see it it is absolutely working because the big popular teams and the popular mixes and the entire crowd knows all the words and knows the entire cheer rap and singing that at the top of their lungs. So
yeah, I feel like if we were ever able to revert back, though, I think that programs that chose to do that would have that same, the same thing that you're talking about. I feel like would still, happen.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one of the things I wish we could switch back personally for me.
Yeah. And well, there's a lot of people that agree with that. I certainly agree with that. It's hard for me to listen to the new cheer music, and that's nothing on these producers because I think their job is actually harder because they're having to create something out of thin air as opposed to using something that someone had already created and just making it a different
I think,
style.
the biggest thing, and maybe it doesn't matter for the sport anymore, but I truly think one of the biggest things is in the past, the music it was part of the choreography. It was part of the whole package. And I don't feel like that's the case anymore. I think the kids might love it and I think they might get some attention or they might like their little rap in their music or whatever, and their crowd might know it and that's cool. But I don't think the music necessarily has any kind of impact on the overall performance or the routine anymore. And 9 times out of 10, I feel like most judges aren't even listening to it.
Well,
they're
plugging their ears.
Thank you. I'm like, I can't think of what am I trying to say?
Earplugs.
Earplugs. Woo,
yeah,
Jesus.
that's the thing. A lot of people don't know, but those judges are sitting up on the stand because they've got to be up there for 5 or 6 hours and it's loud and they are up there with earplugs. So you're exactly right.
Where before they would not do that, because they would wanted to hear the music and it had, it's like dance. I mean, you can watch a dance routine and enjoy a dance routine with no music, but it is always better when you watch it with the music. I would argue that a cheer routine most of the time nowadays, it's no different with or without the music.
Now, one thing I would have a different mindset than you on the rubric versus the non-rubric, which makes sense because you're far more creative than me and I'm not a creative person. The thing that used to frustrate me in the early days of cheerleading, at our gym, everything was skill based, and we would put together teams based on skill. And, I felt like we did things that were creative, but we also did squad skills. And pre-rubric, you'd show up at what I perceived as a sporting event. We're going to go compete in this sport. And we've got a team and we are going to throw 36 toe backs. And we're going to get beat by this team over here that only has 3 toe backs, but they, their creativity, skewed the judges, or their creativity or their music or their whatever made the judges, think that they were better. That would frustrate me. So I do think there is a happy medium between the two because
I agree. I actually thought we were going to have a flat out disagreement on this podcast and get into it. But I agree with you. I mean, I don't think that a team that's doing a squad, toe back should be losing to a team that's doing, 3 toe touchback tucks. However, maybe they did better in something else. And I think that to a point, the creativity and the stylistic nature of the sport was kind of part of the scoring back then. And people like you, Casey Jones, and Roger Schonder came along and were like, hey, that doesn't make any sense. We need to do more of this over here, which I get it to a point, but it kind of took the creativity part out of it. Like I don't want to say that you can't still wow the audience and do things that are creative, but it is way harder to do that now because you have to there's so many. And that's where maybe you're saying like a happy medium. Like we went so far the other way where by the time you check all the boxes of the things that you have to do to even just get into range, to even have a fighting chance, there's no time left to do anything really super fun at all. Like,
I don't know. I still enjoy watching the routines. I still think they're creative. I still think all of that. But I do understand what you're saying about the rubric now, because there are things now that really don't make sense to me on the rubric of there's no reason to take a risk. You look at the scoring, you don't show up to a team not maxing out. When a team doesn't max out their difficulty, it's because they had an injury, the stunt group didn't go, something like that, because they're showing up maxing out.
Right.
And then there's no room to, hey, I created a new stunt, something no one's ever seen. I'm going to put it in here. Well, you don't put it in there because it doesn't count. It's only going to count against you if it's only going to be a deduction.
Right.
Because if it's not listed on there.
Which that is the piece right there that I'm talking about, that I don't love that change, because it doesn't help move things forward unless there is a program, that is bold enough to take that step and say, you know what, I don't care, or I trust that we're going to do it and we're going to hit it. And I do think that you can be rewarded if you do it successfully, but is it worth the risk? And most coaches and most programs aren't going to take the risk, which it's been a long time since there's been a lot of really new, cool, exciting developments as far as what the kids are doing on the floor. You know what I mean?
So, this is going to be really controversial. That's why I like having a separate and a different world score sheet, because the world score sheet is comparative. The reality is I believe that a comparative score sheet is harder to judge on. It takes more judges, more time, more training, all of that. That's why it's not done at all of the events. But to your point, Stace, that allows the world's teams at least to, hey, I'm competing on one of these on this score sheet throughout the season, but then I show up to Worlds and my creativity and my it's going to matter more there, or it could matter more there. So I kind of like that, and I think that to me, that's a reason to have a second score sheet. I don't want to have 5 different score sheets. I don't want to have any of that, but I honestly don't mind competing on the United score sheet during the season, knowing that, what I'm doing right now may not pay off, but I need to do this because it could pay off at Worlds. So,
yeah, which I agree with that actually. And I think that it is good that we have that. I think I am used to dance kind of being more comparative to some degree. And I unfortunately think that dance is eventually going to be like cheer, because I can already see it happening. Because it just, you as a coach, I get it. You start to get frustrated. You show up at this event, you're doing all these amazing things, and you're losing to a team without any genuine real answers, other than we just liked this team better, or they were just a little bit better. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with cheer. And so coaches wanted answers. So event producers started giving them answers. Okay, well, you got to have this many stunts. You got to do this, this, and this. Check the box to get the score, and then we'll take it from there. I don't know.
So, question for you on this, something that hit me. So do you think that a rubric-based score sheet gives the opportunity does it play into safety? Number one, the physical safety of the athletes, and does it allow to have better coaches?
I think that, I don't know that safety. I think if you want to get into a safety conversation as far as the score sheet, I personally think I could argue both ways on that. I mean, because I think you could argue that there's way too much demand on what the kids have to do in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and it makes it extremely difficult. And we talk about this all the time too. It makes it difficult to advance also, because in order to be able to do all of those demanding things in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you have to execute them so perfectly. And so you're going to stay at level 1 for 4 years, and we're going to cap out at level 4 because we can't get the kids.
14 variations of a walkover, back
Correct.
walkover, front walkover,
Correct.
double back walk, double front
Right.
walk,
switch your legs in the air 3 times, not 2 times.
All of this stuff.
Yes.
And so I'm going to stop you real quick, because that is something that I totally agree with. And I think that, a lot of people putting together these score sheets, we've made it easier. You haven't made it easier, because the thing is, you've got to do 16 passes. All right. Well, there's no limits on who has to do the 16 passes. So in the past, you were looking for squad skills or maybe squad -2 skills. Well, now you've got 10 nuggets in the routine that they don't have to throw it. And one girl's throwing her double full 7 times so that you can hit the numbers. So
that's
it may not be
right.
It may be safer for 15 people on the team and way unsafer for one on the team because that's your one girl that's going to help you
I
get
agree.
those numbers.
So like safety, I feel like you could argue either way. Do I think it makes better coaches? I don't know that it makes better coaches, but I do think that it gives coaches a target. And so more people want to hit the target. So it gives them something to like, okay, I know I need to do ABC. And so they are then working on ABC. I think my argument in the conversation is the sport started because of creativity, like an artist, for example. My daughter, she loves to do those like really cool paint by numbers. We've got like a dozen of them. I mean, she does them constantly and they're beautiful. They're not like back in the day, if you know what I'm talking about. They're not like the back in the day paint by numbers. And they come out as these beautiful paintings and she's really awesome at it and they look wonderful. Cool. That's great.
My daughter does the ones with they'll have like crystals.
So Avery loves to do those too. She hasn't done one of those in a while, but she has loved to do those in the past. She does the painting. But the point is, it's really awesome. And it takes a lot of focus and it takes a lot of discipline to sit there and do it. And I'm not trying to knock that, but there's no creativity in it because she's not doing anything at all creative. She's not creating anything with her own mind and making something beautiful. And if you're going to an art gallery to look at paintings, you want to see paintings that are creative and beautiful and different and spark conversation. And, the artist just thought up, and it's their work. And I feel like that's how All Star started. And the creativity was so much more a part of it. And because it grew, I feel like there were so many coaches that couldn't necessarily keep up with that creativity or they weren't as good at their creativity. So little by little by little by little, we like whittled it out of the sport, which is not necessarily good or bad. It's just they're just two different things. And I think what I'm saying is there's no space for it anymore. Even the dance, you could argue is a space where, maybe you could get some creativity to some degree, but it's, I don't know, like the amount of creativity reward is so minimal. And I just wish that we could broaden that gap a little bit. Like, could we require a few less demands and open up some space for some creativity where we bring some of that back into the score sheet a little bit is all that I'm saying.
I want to know what I'm going to score before I get there.
I know. And I want to razzle dazzle you and surprise you and delight you. And I want to win because I brought you something that you didn't expect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I think
there's room for both.
I agree. And I think there's a happy middle ground there. And I think what we have done, we've bounced off one end of, what I described in the early days of All-Star Cheer to, we go to the very opposite of that, strict rubric-based, and then I imagine that sometime it'll swing back the other way. History repeats itself. So definitely that'll kind of ebb and flow. The thing that disappoints me in the score sheet, because like I said, it's no secret. I love business, and making things as efficient. And these are businesses and we are in the kid business and we want to service as many kids as possible. I hate to see when a score sheet dictates and controls and limits business. And I believe that today's score sheet does that because, we spoke, many years ago, you didn't dare show up and compete without a full team. Whatever that was, whether that was a small division, medium division, large division, like if small was 20, you didn't show up with 19 kids. And now it's the opposite. Now it is literally, and I mean, we have that debate in our gym because it is a competitive disadvantage to fill your team.
Yeah.
And goodness gracious.
Well, it's more economic. I mean, I know you talk about the business aspect of it, which is important. And obviously, it's better for all of us to have 30, it's better for the event producer to have 30 kids on the floor. It's better for the gym owner to have 30 kids on the floor. But at the end of the day, the parents, I feel like, are constantly complaining about the cost of the sport and how much it's gone up. And it's like, well, the costs are what the costs are, whether you've got 12 kids on the floor or you've got 30 kids on the floor. And so music
is not cheaper because you only have 11 kids.
Correct.
They don't charge per kid for the music mix.
Correct. Choreography in most cases is not cheaper. While the uniforms and a lot of the garments may be the same, they kind of are and they kind of aren't. If you have more kids, generally, you can get a better price on some of those things, but there's a lot of expense that is more costly with less kids. And it's unfortunate. I think it was an unintended consequence of the score sheet that drove the numbers down, and I think, again, it goes back to the creativity piece and the wow factor. Like, it's just more fun to watch more people. You can do more things with more people, but that's not the way the score sheet is built anymore.
And I'm not even necessarily advocating that everybody needs to have 30 or 38 people on their team or anything like that.
Agree. It just
have a small
hurt
division.
you.
Have an extra small division, but let's promote that, it's better to fill your team. So if extra small is 16, let's have a rubric where, hey, we need all 16 kids instead of 14, because we keep just lowering that number.
Yeah, and the coaches,
then to your point,
and the coaches are like, well, I don't want to have 16 because if I do 14, I can have one less stunt group. And then you have a kid that comes in and wants to join your program, and the coach is like, I don't want them on my team because then I got to add a stunt group.
Hear it all the time. Hear it all the time. And I do think, like you said, that's an unintended consequences, because you want to create a space where, hey, I want to be able to put, not every single kid on the team can tumble. I want to be able to put 2 or 3 kids on the team that can't tumble. But goodness gracious, now we're at a point, like, some of the things I think are just silly. Like, everyone can do a toe touch, but we don't do that now. We do. I don't know the exact numbers, but you see the jump section and half the team's nuggeting behind it or doing something behind it. And I'm like, good Lord, every single one of those kids can do a jump,
Right. And why aren't we doing that? But we're not going to get the best score if we do, because it needs to be your best. I'm
telling you, if we create a sport
but that's where I feel like creativity could come in and be a part of things. And it's like, what are you creatively doing with those 10 kids that are standing in the back instead of just having them nugget? Like, add some sort of picture or flair or splash or a wow moment or something, which you're right, there's no room for that on the score sheet. It's a risk. If you do some silly little lift back there and it doesn't go perfectly, now you're getting points dinged off.
You're getting dinged for it. Yeah.
Correct. And so that's all that I'm saying. Like, let's open up that a little bit where let's force that so that everybody is involved. You can still create a moment or a picture or something that's even more cool than watching jumps, that's visually appealing to the eye with all of the kids on the floor, and everybody's part of that moment now, but there's no point in doing it.
Well, and that's the thing, the inclusivity of the sport. How do we get more kids? Like, I love our sport. I love what we do. I literally think it is one of the best team sports in the world, and when we have a score sheet that makes you not want to fill your team, that limits kids that can do it, So not everyone has a business mind. Not everyone cares about the profit, the efficiency, all this. And that's okay. But look at it from a different way of like, man, there's 2 more spots where 2 more kids could come and enjoy this, but we're not going to put them there because we might lose the competition.
Yeah. And look at it in the context of any other sport. I talk about soccer a lot because my son plays soccer, or football because I just love to watch football, but no soccer coach on the planet is going to be like, I think in college now on soccer teams, they can have 24 athletes, 11, you can have 10 field players, a goalie, right? And so 24 is the max, gives you a couple extra. No soccer coach is going to be like, no, I only want 18. If they can, maybe they only have 18, but if they can have 24, they're going to take 24 and they're going to develop 24 players so that they've got a bench and they've got room and they, to continue to be successful. They're not going to be like, no, I can only have 18 because I'm going to score too many goals if I have more people on my team, on my roster. I mean, there's no sport that I can think of on the planet where the coaches are, no, I can't add strength to my team.
I mean, that is the conversations that I've had with coaches, gym owner. Like, I'm trying to make this team so that I only have to throw one basket toss, so I don't have to worry about timing or this deduction or whatever. And like,
Right. But what does that teach? Like the kids need to learn how to basket toss.
Let's go back to the jump piece. And I understand the creativity or figure out something to do for the extra kids, but
they still should be jumping.
If I don't jump for 5 years,
right,
and then I get on a team where I need to jump, am I prepared? No. If I never tumble, if I never stunt, and that's a story I tell all the time. I haven't coached in a while, but one of the last times I had to step in on one of our youth teams, there was a girl on there. I don't know, she's 10 or 11 years old, and we were reworking some things, and I'm like, "Hey, what position do you play?" And she didn't understand. And I was like, "Are you back spot? Are you base? Are you are you flyer? What do you do?" She's like, "I don't do any of that." I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "No, I've never been in the stunts ever." And I said, "Well, how long have you been cheering?" She's like, 6 years. And I said, "Wait, you've been at Stingray 6 years, and here's an 11-year-old, and she never done any of that stuff because she was labeled, she doesn't do that.
She needed more experience or whatever the case may be, but she never got the experience."
Correct. But here's the thing. The coaches weren't wrong in their decisions because we're trying to be competitive. So they made this decision, and then for the right reasons, for the competitive reasons. And then 3 years from now, like, this kid doesn't have any experience. So that kid's going to wash out of the sport, because they're not gaining experience in the things that they need to. And I think that's score sheet driven. There are people that would argue, well, you guys need to spend time in practice. And we do those things of like, hey, we know that these 12 kids are going to jump, but we're going to jump the whole team. But I don't know that we're going to necessarily build an extra stunt group and risk injury and spend time on that if it's not going to be in the routine. So, that to me, that is an issue with today's score sheet. Because if we want to grow the sport, if we want kids to feel included, they need to have a part in the routine. And I don't think it needs to be like the days of old where you did you had to do all the jumps, all the tumbling, build every stunt, be in the pyramid, and run the point of the dance. I don't think that that's necessary.
No, but I think in a lot of ways we kind of we overcorrected, and we need to just backpedal just a smidge, just a little bit, like I think it would be helpful potentially, for the longevity and for the kids too, and at the end of the day, like that's what we should be making the decisions for, right? Is the athletes and what's best for their growth,
I think positives and negatives to everything, but just to back up, I do think that the rubric helps us in a sense of like, we can bring in a young coach who doesn't have as much experience. And if they will study that rubric and study what they have to have, they have the ability to be not a great coach, but they have the ability to be a pretty good coach if they just understand that and follow that.
It's just like, and I argue with this all the time. Like I constantly challenge my kids. I want them to be like outside of the box thinkers, but not to get on a soapbox, but to point to your point. And you're right. You're not wrong in what you're saying. And I agree with you 100%, but that is basically what we have ingrained our society. We have educated our kids to, from as small children to adulthood, and then they go out into the working world and they're like, I can't go anywhere or do anything without an exact roadmap, without a set of directions and an exact roadmap. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but at the same time, like we're stifling, I feel like, just the growth and the ability to think for ourselves and think outside the box and do different things and get creative just in the world in general. So like I said, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but you're not wrong. I mean, that is, they go to school, they have this is what you're going to do. Check these boxes, get the A, do this, get the, you know what I'm saying? And God forbid they have to think for themselves. Like they're told. And I also feel like we've raised this recent generation too. Like they can't make any mistakes at all. It's like they have to be perfect. I see it all the time in my neighborhood Facebook group. This kid did like he knocked on somebody's door, knock, knock, zoom, zoom. And I'm like, no, should the kid be running around doing knock, knock, zoom, zoom? No, but he's a kid. Like, let the kid be a kid. Like, we all did that. You know what I mean? Like, it was fun. Just, it's okay. Like,
we had the same. It's so funny you say that, because literally Heather the other day saw that and she's like, somebody put a picture of a kid up there and was just blasting this.
Yeah, because they were their Zoom doorbell or whatever, their Ring doorbell that they captured it on. Same thing.
And I was like, I agree. And you don't want your kids doing that. Goodness, especially in today's world, they might get, and that needs a stern talking to. But I was like, man, if somebody put my kid on that little neighborhood app, like, we're going to have a talk.
It happened to me, Casey Jones. They did not know my daughter's name, but it happened to me. And I knew that they were talking about my daughter and 2 or 3 of her friends at the pool. And I was livid. I was like, what kind of world have we grown up in? Like, or what kind of world have we created that it's okay for an adult to go on an open forum and berate a child in a public space in front of hundreds of people just because they didn't like something that was going on? Like, I'm your neighbor. Walk over to my house, knock on my door and say, hey, this is what happened, this is what was going on. Now, come to find out, I found out from other people because, of course, as soon as I saw it, like, I was livid that it was in the Facebook group and I knew it was my kid, but I immediately went to my daughter and I was like, did you do da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? Like, I was ready to, rip her a new one. But come to find out, from other adults that were there, like, our kids were not causing the problem. It was another child. Anyway, the point is, why do we as adults think that that's okay? We are way far off topic now, but it's like, that's not okay. It's not okay.
Right. Yeah.
And does disciplinary action need to happen? Yes. Does the kid need to be corrected? Do they need to learn to do better? 100%. All of those things need to happen. The knock, knock, zoom, zoom, like, go to the parent and be like, hey, I don't really appreciate your kid knocking on my door, but we can laugh about it because he's being a kid. At least he's running around the neighborhood, knocking on people's doors, having some fun, being silly. And he's not blowing something up or, I don't know, doing drugs or drinking alcohol.
Totally agree. And don't blast my kid on a social media website. Right. But then on the opposite of that is people now, like, back in the day, in our time, our neighbors could get onto us. Like, the next door neighbor could, if the kids were,
don't behave that way. Don't.
If I went to my friend's house and I got a little rowdy, then their mom wasn't going to spank me, but she'd chew my butt, and now in today's world, it's the, like, I only discipline my kid or whatever. So once again, it's a happy medium, but I agree. Don't put a kid's picture anywhere unless they're your kid. So
I agree.
Same thing happened in our neighborhood. Glad to know it's just not down here.
Total sidebar. Anyway. All right, let's get back on track with the dad joke.
All right, let's see here. Today's dad joke comes from Mark out of Florida. And got to find this dad joke from Mark from Florida. It's supposed to be right there, but it wasn't. All right, I found it. So once again, thanks from Mark from Florida. Why? I'm just blowing this dad joke today. I'm going to get this right here.
It should be why.
Why did the golfer wear 2 pairs of pants?
I don't know.
I think people can get this one in case he got a hole in one. Boom.
Oh, goodness me.
Send us your favorite dad jokes. You can email them to Stacy at Join MotUS, that's STACY, or DM us on social media at Join MotUS. And now we're going to tell you a little bit about CheerFest.
Looking for the ultimate cheer camp experience? CheerFest is the summer camp for athletes ages 7 to 17. Imagine 6 days of nonstop cheer, dance, tumbling, conditioning, and fun, led by top instructors across the country. And the best part? You'll leave with new skills, new friends, and memories that last a lifetime. Spots fill fast, so register now at cheerfest.com. That's CheerFest.com. Don't just cheer this summer, CheerFest.
All right. I think it's time for some rapid fire, Stace.
All right.
Got some questions for you.
Are
you ready? What
Ready.
food have you never eaten, but you would really like to try?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I've never eaten like my dad used to eat pig's feet all the time, and they would
My grandmother did.
they would sit in a jar on the table, and he would just pickled pig's feet. I don't want to say I would. I don't want to try. I have zero desire to try that, but that's something I've never eaten. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything I've not eaten that I would like to try. I'm not sure. As I think about that,
I see these big, huge, fluffy Japanese pancakes. And I see them on TikTok. You're going to see them now too, now that I'm talking about it, because your phone's probably listening. But
this is true.
There are these pancakes, and they look really like they're golden, and they're like this
All
thick.
right, I'm going to go with Japanese pancakes then. You know what I had the other day that was really good was a gingerbread waffle. And it was delicious. Chris and I, we had to take John to a soccer ID camp, and we decided to drop him off and then go to breakfast. And we purposely found like a local place to where we were. We were in the middle of nowhere, and we were like, let's find there's got to be like a mom and pop shop around here that serves breakfast. And so we did. And this gingerbread waffle was on their menu. It was really good.
Back to Japanese food. Search this up, because the 7-Eleven in Japan apparently has this delicious egg salad sandwich.
Oh.
And they have all these things in the 7-Eleven that's like, it's not like an American 7-Eleven. Everybody listening, check out 7-Eleven in Japan and some of those foods. It will make you want to go to Japan just to eat at a 7-Eleven.
Interesting. All right, what's next?
All right, what's an unusual place you've been?
I have been to Yugoslavia, which doesn't even exist anymore, I guess. What's it called now? I don't even know. But Yugoslavia. I went to Yugoslavia. Yeah.
That's cool.
Croatia and Medjugorje were the two places. Yeah.
Almost went to Croatia. I do want to go there. So
Ne znam dobro vaš jezik. I can speak a little bit of Croatian. There you go.
There you go. I cannot. I only speak redneck. So what movie can you watch over and over without getting tired of it?
So I think my husband and I have watched The Italian Job 100 times, and I do love it, and I could watch it over and over, but we watched it because I always thought that he really liked the movie, and he always thought that I really liked the movie. Both of us like it good enough, but not like to watch it over and over. So we discovered after like 20 years of marriage that neither one of us really like loved it. We thought it was awesome, and we were watching it for the other one. But anyway, any of the Harry Potters, Hunger Games, and Top Gun Maverick, I could watch all of those on repeat.
I'm not a huge movie guy, but whenever Christmas vacation's on, I don't care if it's July.
I'll watch that every Christmas too. Yeah, agree.
And another one that I really like is, and it doesn't come on much anymore, but Smokey and the Bandit.
I don't know that I've ever seen that.
Oh my goodness! Like some of the quotes in there are just so silly and so funny. Like it's funny. So
I might have to watch it now.
What actors or actresses play the same character in almost every movie or show they do?
I feel like Jason Statham plays the same type of character in almost every movie that he does. I love most of his movies. I know what to expect. They're not the greatest, works of theatrical art ever, but I enjoy his movies.
All right, take your phone out. What was the last photo you took?
The last photo that I took. The last photo that I took was of a book that needed to be shipped. It was packed and ready to go on my kitchen table, and I took a picture of it and texted it to my husband to remind him to take it to the post office for me.
Well,
so not very exciting.
Not very exciting, but hey. All right, we got a question from one of our listeners. So, hi, this is Brian from Indiana. As cheerleading continues to evolve, what traditions or values do you miss from earlier days of the sport? And how do those changes impact the pressure athletes feel during championship season now?
Oh, man.
I'll let you answer first. I got one.
As cheerleading continues to evolve, what traditions or values do you miss from the earlier days? Well, I mean, I feel like traditions, I think one of the things that I miss from the earlier days is, I don't know, maybe it's not this way everywhere, but I kind of feel like it is because the events have gotten so big. And I also feel like because everybody's recording and you can see it after the fact. Back in the day, I would love how parents and athletes, they would clamor to the stage to watch certain teams, or they would stay to support their own program. And, they wanted to be there. And I'm not saying that still doesn't happen, but it's just not the same as it used to be. I feel like because if they miss it, it's not that they're not going to go, they're going to be able to see it probably in minutes.
You can watch it.
Yeah. And then I also think too, that parents were more present. The spectators, I shouldn't say parents, the spectators and fans were more present and more engaged
sit there all day
in what was going on. And because they weren't watching through their lens. So that would be one of the things that I would say. How did those, I don't know if the changes impact, I don't know if that specific change impacts the pressure that the athletes feel.
So mine is similar. I think the thing that I miss, in the early days, especially early days of Worlds and Summit and different things like that, our teams would stay together. Events were smaller. There wasn't state of play. We could get everybody at one hotel.
Agree.
Even when we were going to Worlds, we would stay over there at the crappy all-star resort. But, you'd have 4 kids sharing a room. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for not doing that anymore, and safety reasons and things like that. We just don't want to chaperone or take that responsibility. But now, you have teams that are going to these major events and they're spread out over 30 miles, and the kids don't get to have that team bonding like they used to. So that's something I agree. Miss.
But, on the flip side, there's new traditions and new things that the kids are creating, that, 20 years from now will be nostalgic for them when something else, when that's stopped and something new has taken its place.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many, I feel like a lot of today, in this topic, we've shared negative things, but the reality is it's truly still a great sport. It is evolving. The kids are getting better. Still pushing the limits of the sport, and people love to do it. So, and like you said, the reality is I'm on almost my 3rd generation of athletes, and that's just the reality of that first generation doesn't think and I don't think like the new generations think. And that's cool. And that's why things evolve, and that's why things change. And
we're turning into our parents is what's happening.
I know, and that's the thing. We don't have to like everything as long as they do. So
yeah, no, I agree.
Well, I've got a community win here I'd like to share from a gym owner. So after listening to the MotUS Edge episode about managing expectations and keeping perspective, we made a small shift in how we talk to our athletes leading into competition season. Instead of focusing only on scores and placements, we started thinking about effort, growth, and handling the moment. The result has been calmer athletes, more confident performances, and a team that walked off the mat proud whether they won or lost. Ironically, once the pressure came down, the performances went up. That episode reminded us of why we coach in the first place. And that is from a cheer gym owner. And thank you for submitting that. That makes us feel good.
I agree. And I think the episodes that she's talking about, if memory serves me correctly, I'm looking at our list here. I think it's episode 12 or maybe episode 42, where we were talking about managing expectations and keeping perspective. So that's awesome.
I think
that's pretty cool.
I remember that. One thing we teach our, we really try to judge our performances of how those kids feel walking off the floor. We can't control what the judges write. We can't control the scores they get. But, if those kids feel good about what they just did, then we feel good too. And if they don't feel good, then you allow them that moment. You don't need to double down on it. They know if they messed up. So, and that's the thing. You've got to create an environment and a culture where people are free to fail. So.
I agree. And I love that they took a listen and applied it and it went well. That's pretty exciting stuff. So we are super excited to let you guys know that we're going to be hosting a podcast live from our CX Brands Nashville Nationals, which is happening in March. Also getting some fresh insights from parents and coaches at that event to be on the podcast. So be sure to tune in on March 18th when that episode airs. The last time we recorded a live podcast was at the MotUS Business Expo. We've never done one at a competition before, so this will be super fun. I'm excited about it.
I was nervous the last time we did that. So
yeah,
maybe I won't be as nervous this time. So.
It'll be good. It'll be good. If you are still here and listening, you can win a free novel of your choice when you subscribe to our platforms, leave a review, and comment on social media. I love the MotUS Edge. So if you want an SR Fabrico novel, Casey has read them all. He's one of my biggest fans. And you are still listening, comment I love the MotUS Edge on our social media, and follow and subscribe to our YouTube and social media, which we're going to talk about in just a second. And I will ship you a novel of your choice. So let's see who's going to do it. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at the MotUS Edge. Check out our short videos, like and comment. We love to hear from you. Give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Join MotUS, or check us out on TikTok and LinkedIn at the MotUS Edge. Follow our show wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you like what we're doing and you want to hear more, leave us a comment and tell all of your friends. And hey, if you're a gym owner, join the movement today and sign up for MotUS. Thank you all for listening. We're excited for you to have the MotUS Edge.
Thank you for listening to the MotUS Edge. We hope you had a blast. Join us next week for more on business, leadership, and motivation. Subscribe and follow the show where you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our newsletter at joinmotus.com. The MotUS Edge podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.